Okay, here is a tough question. If your team described your leadership when you were not in the room, would it match how you describe yourself? It is a tender question, isn't it? Because in most of the cases of leaders that I work with and organizations I work with, leaders are thoughtful and they're driven and they really do want to do right by their people. But there is often a gap between how they see themselves and how other people experience them. That gap is where leadership can mature or where it can unfortunately erode trust over time. Hi there, I'm Leanne Lagasse. I'm a leadership consultant and a keynote speaker and the author of The Congruent Leader. In my book, I outline 7 interconnected pillars that help leaders align who they are with how they show up externally. And today, in this video, we're exploring pillar 1, which is all about pursuing self-awareness with courage and commitment. This pillar, it's pillar 1 for a reason. And that's because without self-awareness, none of the other pillars hold. You know, if you're a leader, you can work on communication and strategy and culture and values, but if you're not willing to examine yourself honestly, your growth will inevitably stall. In fact, I once worked with a senior executive who opened our very first coaching session by saying he was really discouraged, and he said, something obviously isn't working, and I think I'm past the point of being able to fix this on my own. His team was really disengaged. Trust had, again, eroded on the team. His intensity had crossed into what others described as like emotional reactivity and impulsivity. At one point, he admitted to me that he was really scared that he had damaged his reputation beyond repair. But then came a turning point. He realized that the version of himself that he was uncomfortable confronting was actually the version that his team encountered every single day. It took a lot of courage for him to face that, but that is pillar 1 in action. Because self-awareness requires a lot of courage. It causes us to, have to face ourselves and in ways that maybe even threaten some of our self-concept. A lot of this comes down to our mindset. Our ability to grow in self-awareness comes down to our mindset. So I want to share 4 helpful mindset frameworks and some concepts that can help us grow in self-awareness if we're open to it. First, Carol Dweck's research on fixed versus growth mindset, one of my faves, gives us a lot of helpful language here. A leader with a fixed mindset clings to identity and says things like this is just who I am. If they don't like it, too bad, right? But a leader who has a growth mindset stays really open. I have the ability to improve. And in that situation, then feedback just becomes information. So let me ask you this. When you receive difficult feedback, is your first instinct to defend who you believe that you are, or to explore what might be true, or at least what might be perceived by others as true? Secondly, there's another helpful distinction that shapes pillar 1, and it's called performance versus learning mindset or orientation. So some leaders approach every situation as if it's a test of competence. So when something goes wrong, the internal dialogue sounds like, I should have done better. I need to prove that I'm a great leader. Whereas others approach leadership as more ongoing developmental process, where the internal dialogue sounds more like, that didn't go as I planned. What can I learn? How can I improve? How can I become a better leader through this? So think about your last leadership challenge. Which voice showed up first for you? And if you're feeling a little bit of shame about that, no worries. For me, I have always struggled with a performance mindset, and I have had to work really hard and continue to have to work really hard to retrain my mind in a way that allows for growth instead of shame. All right, third, let's talk about one of my favorite concepts to discuss with leaders, locus of control. So here's a question. When something goes wrong on your team, does your explanation go first to kind of circumstances, personalities, or systems, or to your own influence? So an internal locus of control means that you believe that your choices, your habits, your responses meaningfully influence your outcomes. So when something goes wrong, you instinctively ask, what was my role and how can I adjust? Whereas an external locus of control, very tempting by the way, means that you believe outcomes are driven mostly by forces outside of you, right? Other people, systems, luck, timing, etc. So when something goes wrong, your focus naturally shifts to those external factors. So here's a powerful reflection question that you can ask yourself. What is one leadership challenge that you've been attributing most to external factors? And think about it a different way. What's an action that you could take to influence the outcome? Really adopting more of that internal locus of control. So pillar 1 is very much about moving from mindsets that aren't serving us well to mindsets that can help us grow in both confidence in our leadership, but also curiosity, because healthy leaders trust their instincts. They trust the decisions that they make, but they're also curious about how those decisions are landing or how they're perceived by other people. When curiosity overwhelms confidence, your clarity weakens, right? And then we don't want the other as well. So pillar 1 is going to really help you hopefully achieve a balance with questions like, okay, when was the last time that I asked someone, how did that land? Do I invite feedback consistently or only when I feel secure enough to hear it? Where, if anywhere, might I be overly certain about myself? And here's the deal, right? Self-awareness is built through practice, reflection, mindfulness, studying our own stress patterns, seeking feedback, working with a coach, or even using really cool tools that might help us surface patterns that we missed. So, and this is important, right? Pillar 1 is not about shame. I know I mentioned that a moment ago, but I just want to reiterate that research shows that harsh self-criticism actually does not help us grow. We want to replace that shame with curiosity. Courage, yes, to face what's true, commitment to stay engaged, but curiosity to explore, confidence to act, and then compassion with ourselves. That is why this is pillar 1. So if you would like help applying this, I've created a free guide with AI-based reflection prompts. I'm really excited about this, specifically designed to help you grow in self-awareness and congruence. You can download that in the comments below or find it in the comments below. If this was helpful, I also encourage you to like and subscribe and do all of the things. You don't want to miss the rest of the content on pillars 2 through 7. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time.